Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, this year's summer reading program theme is Oceans of Possibility, and since we are launching our summer reading program this Saturday, I thought this would be the absolute perfect time to celebrate with a selection of films centering around the sea and sea life, whether we're talking about creatures that live in the sea or people that live off of the ocean's bounty. In any case, these recs run the gamut of genres, everything from action-adventure pirate hijinks to a really beautifully filmed documentary exploring underwater reefs. So I think you will definitely find something within these selections. If not, though, you can always pick something else from one of our 3 video services. Those are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. Now, as always, all of these recommendations and all of the items that are available through our video services are entirely available for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So without any further ado, let's get on to the recs. All right, kicking things off with a selection from Hoopla, and that is 2014's The Pirates. Now, The Pirates is a South Korean action-adventure film, so it is in the Korean language, so of course you will have English subtitles, but as I say every single time I recommend a foreign language film, totally worth it. This one is just such a fabulously fun, campy, high seas adventure that you don't even really notice the subtitles. It's just a really, really good time to watch. So in The Pirates, we are kind of following a fictionalized series of events that happened just after the founding of the Joseon dynasty, which is a particular period of time within South Korea's history. There is a rather shocking robbery of a Ming Dynasty seal that is absolutely vital that the Korean people keep safe. It's actually not been stolen, but instead swallowed by a giant whale, who is known throughout the film as Whale. That's her name. And this results in this odd little conspiracy where rather than admitting that a whale has eaten this seal, the government comes up with this ploy where it was actually pirates that stole the seal. And so there's this mass sort of hunt for all the pirates on the sea. And this sort of order is disrupted when a couple of different factions start to fight back. And I know it sounds ridiculous and convoluted, and it absolutely is, but it's one of those movies that really, really works with that sort of super elevated, really out there kind of plot line. You've got a lead actress who is primarily known for her dramatic and romantic comedy roles, Sun Ye-jin, who you might know from Crash Landing on You, which was hugely popular on Netflix. She ends up playing the lead as one of the pirates, one of the captains of these little bandit groups, and she is required to do a lot of like stunt work and physical action and comedy, which she's definitely not known for, but it really, really works within this sort of sphere. And then you have her faction of pirates that she leads, which she sort of inherited after she took over that group. And then there's another faction of pirates that's led by a former soldier. And they clash amongst themselves, but also sort of band together to fight back against this decree against pirates. And there's also a little bit of unusual environmentalism within it, but primarily we're dealing with all of the antics that come from these two factions fighting against, the entire military might of the Joseon dynasty. You've got a ton of secondary characters whose roles are populated by really very well-known comedic actors. So you've got a lot of comedy going on throughout. But you also have some really, really phenomenally well choreographed scenes. There's actually a nighttime fight sequence that, one, the cinematography is excellent, like seriously incredibly well done. Um, Compared to any film or big budget television series. I mean, it looks amazing. And this nighttime fight sequence, there's, you know, all of the complexities with light and shadow and darkness going on, but there are also like these bursts of flame, and the fight choreography throughout that entire scene is amazing. Um, You've got a really good bit of chemistry between both of the pirate leads, and those leads both between themselves and then with their merry band of bandits. You've got some really interesting backstory going on between the former military pirates and the government faction. You've got some really interesting, as I mentioned, um, environmentally friendly concepts going on as well. And all of this seems like really disjointed and ridiculous, but it somehow manages to mesh together into a film that never stops. There's always something going on, and it keeps you caught up. It doesn't slow down. And even in those moments where you do have some pretty heavy drama going on, you're still caught up in the storyline. You are just as engaged as you are during like the high seas hijinks going on. So if you're looking for something very fast paced, something that's got a ton of comedy with some really, really fantastic action sequences going on, and then you also want something with a little bit of that sort of swashbuckling romance, like over the top, like bodice ripper kind of storyline romance to it, this is really, really an excellent, excellent film. The Pirates also has a sort of same universe sequel, The Pirates 2. It's available on Netflix. So if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can actually watch that. Again, none of the characters really from this are in that sequel, but it's still in that same universe. And it's also a really, really fun swashbuckling adventure. So there are those two for you. So once again, if you are looking for something fun, definitely check out 2014's The Pirates. It's available on Hoopla Digital, and you absolutely won't regret it. Okay, moving right along to my next recommendation. This one is also available on Hoopla Digital, and it is 2020's Children of the Sea. This is a phenomenal, phenomenal film. It's a Japanese animation, so you do get 2 audio tracks of your choosing. There's the original Japanese audio track with English subtitles, and then there is the English audio track as well. Both of those links, as always, are going to be below in the description box, so you can pick which way you prefer to watch it. But regardless of which way, this is one of those movies that I just absolutely fell in love with, and I strongly urge everybody to at least check it out. It may not be your cup of tea if you're not an animation fan, but I just think it offers something so unusual. So this is not told in a really linear narrative, with a really linear narrative. It kind of plays around with time a lot, and you definitely don't have a traditional storytelling method with it. You're always a little bit off kilter, which is something I absolutely love. This is, however, one of those where I think you're never meant to really get 100% exactly what's going on. Everything is a metaphor. Everything is not just what it seems, and that adds so many layers to it. It's a coming of age tale. So, you've got your main character, who is a girl, Ruka. She's feeling, really isolated and displaced. She has parents, but they aren't really super connected to her. She doesn't feel as though she's a big priority. And then things take a wild turn when she meets these 2 mysterious boys, Sora and Uki, who really totally change her life. And it's one of those relationship films that, again, you never really know 100% what's going on, who these kids represent. Even Ruka, is she just a little girl or is she something more? And I don't know if it is simply because I'm very, very used to this kind of storytelling, but this kind of tale definitely resonates with me because it kind of fits for anyone. It will fit your mood no matter what. Your interpretation is never going to be 100% wrong because there's not a 100% right interpretation either. And I know that sounds ridiculous and like, how is that possible? But I really do feel that's definitely the vibe from this movie. And besides it being one of those films that I really found to be incredibly moving, it's also visually stunning. The colors, it's such a saturated film, all of these blues and greens and grays. So when you get colors that pop out of that particular color family, everything is really striking. You have a story that's based on a manga of the same name, which I'd actually read back when it originally was coming out. But I think seeing everything on screen really gives it a different flavor. And I really, really liked what was adapted. I thought they did a really good job with the main characters. I think, again, that color, that saturated palette is just, it pulls you in and it makes you feel like you're underwater. It's so blue and so, I don't know, it just is really, really incredible looking. So yeah, it's, again, potentially not for absolutely every movie watcher out there, but one that if you like anime at all, you 100% need to watch this. If you are interested in stories that sort of play around with emotions, that play around with metaphor, because seriously, everything represents something else within this. If you like that kind of storytelling, if you like East Asian folktale and legend, this is absolutely something you need to check out. Again, available on Hoopla Digital with both a Japanese audio track and an English audio track. 2020's Children of the Sea. It's an absolute must-watch. Okay, final recommendation for this week. This one is a documentary available on Canopy, and that is 2020's The Last Reef, Cities Beneath the Sea. I love this kind of documentary. It's one of those films that just sort of takes you to another world and just explores. It doesn't necessarily have an agenda. It doesn't necessarily want you to have a certain viewpoint. It just plops you down and lets you experience that completely unknown world. And in this one, we're talking about coral reefs. The only agenda I would say that it's pushing is that coral reefs are vital to the survival of the ocean and planet in general. And I think that's a fairly reasonable agenda to push. Besides that, though, like I said, you are just exploring and you're seeing all of the ecosystems down there, the fish and the ocean life that exists, and then just sort of experiencing reefs themselves. It does, again, get into some of the environmental concerns, how a lot of reefs are, very much in danger of being destroyed and how that could affect those particular ecosystems. But again, that's not really one of those things that I think anybody is questioning these days. I think it's definitely not a concern. If you're not someone who's really interested in a message movie, this is not something to worry about. That's not how this particular documentary feels anyway. So you do get a ton of shots of just real reef life and the world that surrounds those reefs, but you also get these really interesting 3D visual renditions of different reef elements, and that sort of gives us the chance to sort of even more so deep dive into what's going on within those little pockets of the universe. The music is really, really well done with this. Sometimes I feel in underwater films especially, this is terrible, but it's kind of a sleepy music that just that's really peaceful and wonderful, but if I'm already tired, it's just over before it begins. And that doesn't, for me, that didn't feel how the score was composed with this in mind. It definitely was not sleepy. It just fit really, really well. It was atmospheric, but not a boring score in any way, shape, or form. You've also got some really solid narration going on. You have some really, really interesting shots of wildlife. There are a couple shots of jellyfish that, like, there's no specific plot within this particular documentary, but you definitely see these shots, and it's amazing. It's like, again, you're taking an actual tour. You're diving down with some professional and being able to see and experience these things. Think kind of like IMAX with a little less of that like weird peripheral vision headachiness going on, and maybe nobody else feels that way, but I definitely do, so I can't watch IMAX. Anyway, it definitely has that immersive experience vibe going with it. We get to see like the range of wildlife, so from the teeniest tiniest little particle animals going on to some pretty serious predators. That's always a lot of fun for me. I love seeing um, detailed explanations about what the job of everything that's living in these kinds of environments is. And we get, you know, a really, really like hands off experience. So without there being like a super heavy agenda going on, you really do feel like you're just plopped in and you get to sit and see and watch and hear what these worlds are. Um, The cinematography, again, absolutely fantastic. Music, really, really solid. Narration, pretty solid. I would say the one thing I wish there was more of would be like a little bit more scientific background about, some of like the history and how reefs like grow and how that kind of thing will shift and how everything else around it shifts. But beyond that, I really, really love this. And I think it would be a really solid pick for anyone who likes, to experience things through film. If you like National Geographic documentaries, that would be a really good comparable experience. A National Geographic documentary, super hands off, just plops you down, lets you see and live and breathe, and this does such a good job with that. So again, if you're looking for that kind of documentary film, check out Canopy's The Last Reef: Cities Beneath the Sea. Wonderfully filmed, really, really great time, and a fast watch. Okay, so those were my picks for this week. If you have any recommendations for films about oceans or sea life, please, please, please comment with those below. I love getting other people's recommendations. It just gives me a chance to explore more movies. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us explore in the future, please, please comment with those below as well. It's a massive, massive help to me. As always, thank you so, so much for tuning in this week. I love putting lists like this together. It's just really, really fun to do those deep dives into our catalogs and just pick movies that I think might resonate with others. So without any further ado, I'm going to close out this episode. Again, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.